In the vast stretches of the galaxy, countless civilizations had come and gone, but the Galactic Council remained constant, a seemingly eternal force of dominance and order. Each member of the Council, representing their own species, held an unwavering belief in their right to control the galaxy's diverse worlds. They saw themselves as the natural rulers, keeping peace through strict governance, enforced by collecting tributes from each member race. These tributes ranged from precious resources to artifacts that symbolized loyalty, reminding all under their rule of the Council's power. When humanity joined this galactic stage, the Council assumed Earth would follow the same protocol as every other world. It would comply, submit, and provide its fair share of tribute. They had assessed humans, finding them scrappy, stubborn, and young, mere newcomers to the greater cosmic order. In the Council's eyes, Earth was a backwater planet with little to offer, barely more than a curiosity. Yet, even so, the Council's emissaries arrived to make their formal demand. Their message, as always, was both ceremonial and commanding, designed to assert authority. The emissaries stood in front of the assembled representatives of Earth, delivering the familiar ultimatum: Earth would provide a tribute to honor the Galactic Council, proving its loyalty and subservience. Human leaders met the demand with a mixture of frustration and anger. To them, this was an insult, an expectation that they would simply kneel before a distant, faceless authority without question. They saw through the Council's rhetoric. It wasn't about cooperation but control. Humanity had fought too hard for its independence to submit now. Earth had long battled its own struggles for freedom, both on its surface and, more recently, among the stars. They understood oppression, and they recognized the same pattern in this demand. Behind closed doors, the world's leaders debated how to respond. Some argued for open defiance, while others suggested compliance to avoid drawing too much attention. But one thing was clear among them: humanity would not provide anything of value, no wealth, no precious resources, no technologies. They would not let Earth become yet another subjugated world, stripped of its own treasures for the sake of appeasing a distant regime. After much deliberation, humanity arrived at a decision. They would comply with the demand, but in their own way, on their own terms. If the Council wanted tribute, they would get it, but not in the form they expected. Instead, humanity would send a message of defiance that the Council would not forget. In their deliberations, humanity's leaders decided they wouldn't send the Council anything of real value. Instead, they'd send a statement, a tribute that would make the Council understand exactly who they were dealing with. They settled on a plan so audacious, so darkly humorous, that it would shock the Council to its core. They would send prisoners' heads as their tribute, humanity's most violent criminals, those who had committed the gravest offenses and contributed nothing but suffering. If the Council wanted tribute, they would get the worst Earth had to offer. This was no casual decision. Every aspect was weighed carefully, down to the meaning it would convey. Human leaders recognized that to send valuable resources would signal compliance, but to send the heads of criminals showed that Earth's people wouldn't be intimidated or coerced. They were offering the refuse of their society, an unmistakable message to the Council that if it wished to make demands, it would receive what humanity deemed worthless. To the Council, this act would be incomprehensible, even offensive, yet it would reinforce that humanity's submission was not so easily won. Preparation for this tribute was grim but straightforward. Selected prisoners were chosen for their extreme offenses, those who had threatened the very peace humanity strove to maintain. Their identities were deliberately selected to reflect the worst of humanity's nature, a symbolic gesture underscoring that Earth's offering was nothing more than human waste. Leaders debated whether this gesture might be too provocative, whether it might anger the Council into retaliation. But in the end they agreed. This was not merely a political message but a stand, a declaration of their resolve. The task fell to a specialized team, entrusted with the grim work of collecting and preparing the heads. They ensured the heads were meticulously preserved, encased in containers that would keep them pristine until they arrived at the Council's central hub. The packaging was intentionally minimalist, with no decoration or honor attached, just a stark, brutal presentation. They loaded each container with the same gravity they might reserve for a state shipment, Only this one carried a different significance, a dark, unspoken warning. As the final preparations were completed, a quiet tension filled the air. Officials watched the loaded crates as they prepared to depart from Earth, knowing that this defiant tribute would soon land in the Council's pristine halls. The leaders stood solemnly, their expressions set as they watched the shipment ascend into the sky. It was a moment charged with conviction, laced with the daring hope that this calculated affront would make the Galactic Council understand. Humanity would not submit. They were sending their answer. The shipment from Earth arrived at the heart of the Galactic Council's headquarters, an event anticipated by high-ranking officials and dignitaries alike. The council chamber was filled with an air of ceremony and expectation. Earth's tribute was about to be revealed, and the council members, who had deemed humanity a minor and pliable addition to their ranks, looked forward to observing what the newcomers had chosen as their offering. One by one, the crates were brought into the vast hall, each one sealed and stamped with humanity's insignia. High-ranking council members leaned forward, eagerly anticipating the exotic resources or rare artifacts that lesser planets typically provided. For them, Earth's tribute was a formality, a demonstration of fealty, and they expected no surprises. As the first crate was opened, however, silence fell, gradually replaced by gasps and whispers as the contents were revealed. Rows of human heads, perfectly preserved, their faces an unsettling array of expressions frozen in death. At first, there was stunned silence. The heads, placed methodically, each bore a label identifying their crimes, a detail that went unnoticed in the immediate shock. Council members recoiled in horror, many too appalled to even process what they were seeing. This was not a tribute, they thought. It was an atrocity, a blatant disrespect to the traditions they held sacred. Others in the chamber were paralyzed, eyes wide with incomprehension, struggling to make sense of the scene before them. As the initial shock began to wear off, reactions from different council members varied wildly. Representatives from more peaceable species appeared visibly distressed, expressions twisted with disgust and confusion. One alien diplomat let out a small, horrified whimper, unable to look at the human faces staring blankly up from the containers. Others, accustomed to more confrontational cultures, stared with cautious intrigue, their minds racing to decipher the intent behind humanity's choice. Perhaps, some wondered, this was a message, a coded communication reflecting some human ritual or tradition beyond their understanding. The chamber buzzed with voices, each trying to interpret this startling display. Some called it a profound insult, demanding immediate consequences for such an affront, while others, more measured, suggested it was a misunderstanding, a peculiar human custom not meant to offend. A few, considering the labeled crimes, viewed it as a symbolic statement, a means of implying that Earth's worst was all it deemed worthy to send. This alone struck some council members as an act of bold defiance, a calculated mockery of the council's authority. The debate intensified, with theories and accusations flying across the chamber. Some argued that humanity's tribute was an overt act of defiance, a challenge to the Council's power that could not be ignored. Others wondered if it reflected some deep-rooted human perspective on punishment or justice, hinting at a complex culture they hadn't fully understood. And a few even admired the unorthodox approach, noting that, insult or not, it had captured the Council's attention in a way few tributes ever had. The discussions grew heated, with no consensus reached. To some, the tribute was a clear message of noncompliance, to others, a diplomatic disaster waiting to escalate. But all were left with one undeniable fact: humanity had sent a message that would not be easily forgotten. Alongside the tribute, humanity's leaders had included a written message, brief and direct. It read, "To the Galactic Council, you demanded tribute, but we will not yield our resources, nor our loyalty, to those who assume our submission. We send instead the refuse of our society, those who dishonored and harmed our kind. This is all we deem worthy of your demand." As council members pored over the words, the message's implications became clear. Humanity was refusing to recognize the council's authority, outright rejecting the notion that it owed anything to a distant governing body. There was no ambiguity. Earth had made a statement of defiance wrapped in grim satire, sending only what they considered worthless. They weren't intimidated, nor did they seek approval. They had given the Council an unflinching glimpse of human resolve, resilience, and a stark view of what they thought of arbitrary power. For the Council, accustomed to unchallenged rule, the message was unprecedented. Many within the chamber saw the words as a direct attack on their authority, a dangerous act that could inspire other worlds to question the Council's power. Representatives of more authoritarian species were visibly outraged, their voices rising in demands for retribution. They argued that humanity had openly mocked the Council and, by extension, the very stability of the Galactic Order. For them, punishment was the only option, a clear and swift reminder that insubordination was unacceptable. Others, however, couldn't help but feel an odd respect for humanity's response. Representatives from more independently minded races recognized a kindred spirit in Earth's rejection of submission. The humans had stood their ground, refusing to hand over anything of true worth, choosing instead to send a message that their cooperation would not be bought or coerced. To these members, humanity's act, while unorthodox, hinted at a culture with a unique perspective on freedom and justice, one that valued autonomy above all else. The Council's core philosophies clashed with humanity's stance. The Council maintained peace through order and submission, believing that stability could only be achieved through a strict hierarchy. Yet humanity's philosophy was rooted in resistance to oppression, born from centuries of conflict and self-determination. This difference created a chasm that Council members struggled to bridge. Where the Council saw control as necessary, humanity saw it as oppression to be fought. This fundamental contrast sent ripples through the chamber, as Council members realized the true challenge in dealing with Earth. Divided and uncertain, the Council found itself in turmoil. Some called for an immediate show of force to subdue Earth and reinforce the Council's dominance. Others cautioned against provoking a race that had shown such resilience and willingness to stand against the tide. A few even entertained the notion that humanity might be an unexpected ally in their shared resistance to tyrannical control. The room pulsed with tension as each faction argued their stance, unable to reach consensus on how to respond to humanity's defiance. But one thing was undeniable: Earth's message had left an indelible mark, unsettling the Council in a way that no other race had managed. Whether it would lead to conflict or reluctant respect remained uncertain, but humanity had proven it would not bow quietly to power. The Council deliberated, voices clashing as each side debated how to handle the defiant new species. Some argued for sanctions, calling humanity a dangerous outlier that needed to be reminded of the Council's authority. Others, however, were wary of pushing too far, recognizing that humanity's unpredictable nature made them a unique threat. Earth's choice of tribute had unsettled them deeply, revealing a capacity for defiance, resilience, and dark humor that the Council rarely encountered. This boldness wasn't something they could simply ignore, but neither was it something they could afford to confront recklessly. Whispers of humanity's stand spread throughout the galaxy. Stories of Earth's tribute and the Council's heated reaction rippled through allied species, capturing the attention of worlds that had long lived under the Council's firm rule. Rumors grew, and humanity's reputation began to take on a life of its own, a race unbowed, unwilling to kneel even before the might of the galaxy's most powerful authority. For many, humanity's defiance became an inspiration, a reminder that the Council's grip was not as unbreakable as it seemed. Meanwhile, Earth waited, fully aware of the consequences that might follow. Humanity's leaders knew they had sent a message that could provoke the Council's wrath, yet they were prepared to face whatever came next. Earth's people stood united, braced for potential retaliation but confident in their choice. The decision to stand against the Council wasn't taken lightly. It was a testament to humanity's determination to protect their values, even in the face of overwhelming power. They wouldn't back down, and they were ready for whatever the Council might send their way. In time, Earth's defiant tribute became more than just a story. It turned into a legend that spread across the stars, symbolizing a spirit that could not be easily subdued. Humanity's message resonated with others who had been silent under the Council's rule, and tales of Earth's fearless response became a rallying cry. The Galactic Council's demand for tribute had led to something they had not anticipated: a new race, respected not for its wealth or technology, but for its courage to resist. Humanity's legacy was sealed that day, a race marked by defiance, with a reputation that would forever echo through the galaxy. They had refused to kneel, proving that while Earth might be small, its people were not to be underestimated.